Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in this morning, let's bring in one thing that is constant is change. And we have a pleasant surprise for you this morning, for the person steering our headlines this morning. I think I'll commend my reserve.
You comment your reserve.
Well, good morning to all of you, Dr. Constance, Benga, Vimbai. It's wonderful to see you all today from this end of the camera today.
What's so pleasant to see you from that other side.
Absolutely.
She's joined the Arise musical chairs, I like to call it.
Exactly, I like that, Vimbai. And we're being dynamic, able to change and swiftly just, adjust at the spur of the moment. So I'm glad to be here.
It's live television.
Absolutely.
Anything can happen.
That's right.
So this serendipity is a story for another day.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get into the headlines and let's pull up today's papers and see what's making the top stories. So let's kick off with our sister publication, which is This Day. At the top, it says, at Nigeria's Energy Summit, Tinubu renews 3 million barrels per day oil production target by 2030. Now, Vimbai, I know that you were at this event and I would like you to touch up on that, but let's go through a few more of the headlines. In the middle there, we have a picture with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the VP, and Wale Edun with a few of the delegates from the World Bank. And that leads to our next headline where it says, World Bank, Nigeria, now global reference, for steady, credible reforms. Is that true? We'll look more into that shortly. Moving on to The Guardian, we have Senate delays stalls electoral reforms as group warns of risk to democracy. Now, we've been touching on this story quite a few times in the past few days, so we're going to really look in depth and see what's happening and why these delays are going on. Moving over to The Punch, let's pull up The Punch on our screens, please. At the top there, we have bandits kill 30 in fresh Kwara Katsina attacks. How very unfortunate. Below that, we have genocide accusations with U.S. Congress panels hold new session on Nigeria today. Below that, we have electricity subsidy, a story that has not been going stale and will not be going stale anytime soon. FG to deduct 3.6 trillion naira from Federation account. As the FG begins sharing of power subsidy burden with states, LG's 1.2 trillion naira to be deducted yearly. Next up, we have the Vanguard with a bit of politics here in the top right-hand corner. PDP, Makinde, Wike fight dirty. Now, Makinde is saying no more vagabonds in PDP. You're a repentant vagabond. Wike fires back. Moving on from that, we have Daily Independent. We're seeing some of the same headlines rotating with Tinubu cites policy gains in deepening PIA energy reforms. New Telegraph has 79 Nigerians, other Africans on criminal list and face deportation. Very interesting story that I see there still on New Telegraph. We have DSS arraigns Malami and son on terrorism financing, firearms possession. What a shock. Moving on to the international papers now, we have the same story circulating with the big Mandelson controversy with Jeffrey Epstein. The Daily Mirror says, inexcusable. A criminal probe is launched over claims that he leaked info to Epstein. He quits Lords as a furious PM hands dossier of evidence to the cops. Now, we're speaking about this yesterday as well, where we were discussing how, Mandelson was caught up with exchanging money for government documentation. In the Times, we have the same headline, Mandelson facing full criminal investigation. And in the front there, we have a picture of him and a young lady whose face has been censored. And we saw a similar picture yesterday where Mandelson was in his underwear. How very, very embarrassing this is for the ex-lord at this point in time. Daily Mail, evidence that damns Labour's dark lords. The Sun, same thing, princes of darkness. There's a picture side by side with Mandelson and ex-Prince Andrew. Now let's take a look at the headlines in detail. Going back to this day, Vimbai, I'm going to start with you because we were speaking about the Energy Summit that you attended these past couple of days. Can you give us some highlights in relation to what is on the front page of this day, where it was said that Tinubu renews a 3 million barrel per day oil production target by 2030. To add to that, I also want to say, and acknowledge, you had a very viral moment yesterday with, your appearance there at the Energy Summit. I mean, give us a rundown. Give us a rundown of what happened.
All right, well, let's start with the business end of it, which is that yesterday was the opening session of the Nigeria International Energy Summit, the 9th edition to take place. And as expected, since it is an initiative that's hosted by the federal government and sponsored by NNPC, yesterday was more of a policy day. Yesterday was more of a day for the government to be able to reassure operators, potential investors, and all those players in the region as well, because you also have representatives from other African countries, to say, well, this is what we are doing here in Nigeria to work towards the theme, which is energy for peace and prosperity, securing our shared future. So what does that mean? That means it really meant that all those who spoke, from Vice President Kashim Shettima, who was representing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, all the way to the ministers of state, petroleum and gas respectively, even the group CEO of NNPC, it was all about reinforcing confidence. So they are talking about the PIA and how the PIA is fully implemented, and of course bullish outlooks, as you read in that headline, that they're saying that, well, we can get up to 3 million barrels per day. Now that's sort of on the surface. This is the positioning and the signaling that we would expect from government on such an occasion. But underneath the surface, we know that last year our target was 2 million barrels per day, and we were unable to make that. At best, we did 1.7 million barrels per day. And if you remember, we also started missing our OPEC quota because when we speak of 1.7 million barrels per day, that includes condensate. So in actuality, it's about 1.4 million barrels per day of actual crude. So I think the conversation is going to be deepened as the summit moves forward.
Progresses, yeah.
But with regards to how is all of this going to be achieved, some important points were made, which is that pipeline vandalism, which was normally attributed for the leakages, which was normally attributed for the fact that the numbers, we were not making our target numbers, they say that's an issue that has been dealt with almost entirely. So that means that the problem is elsewhere. And I hope that as the summit goes on for the next couple of days, they'll be able to get into deeper detail as to where the real issues were. But it's now been established that pipeline vandalism was just a small pinch of the problem that we have in trying to ramp up our daily output of crude oil. And then, of course, the vice president calling. I did not expect that whatsoever. I was minding my business, and it was just
saying a Zimbabwean daughter turned Nigerian wife.
And you know what? It just, for me, I thought it was just a great moment for Arise. It just means that our platform is impactful. Our platform is getting to the decision makers. So I think the most important message there was the message that Arise is getting to the faces and the ears of those who matter.
I think I'm in sync with you, Vimbai. I think the Vice President's comment speaks volume about performance, about professionalism. Yes. And I'm proud of you that you could attract that for Arise News, because that's what we stand for, professionalism and objectivity. But resonating with the Energy Summit was that very depressing statistics of the African continent losing about $120 billion to oil imports. So we cannot really meander the way through the woods with a heavily import-dependent economy. Vimbai talked about pipeline vandalism and vandalism of oil installations. And as at 2025, we still have about over 8 trillion naira loss to oil theft. So for a country that's meant to be home to both oil and gas reserve, our oil reserve is about 37 billion cubic feet, and our gas reserve is about 210 trillion cubic feet. That's enough for us to turn the entire economy around. But we look at the situation. It seems a lot of politics has been intruded into our oil and gas planning, because you look at a situation where we are still at the crossroad over what to do about our refineries. Our
Yes.
Dangote refinery has come in as a game changer, has come into the mainstream, and the federal government is saying how it can beef up its exports to 20%, and also to see how we can expand local capacity. But I think there is need for a more decisive action. Like Vibai rightly mentioned, we are operating low below, way below our OPEC quota, and this is not a good indication. So with the appointment of two strategic helmsmen in the oil sector, the CEOs of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission and the NMDPRA, is expected that they should put heads together to see how we can reverse decades of oil decline in the economy. I leave the rest.
All right.
to
Thanks a lot for that, Benga. And I'm going to come to you with this next headline. But Bimbai, I also want to just say well done on your economic, really big input when it comes to this analysis of the economies of things. And I think there's still a few more days to go for the Energy Summit. So we look forward to more updates that are to come from that. Benga, I want to stick with you as our political extraordinaire.
Stick with me.
We have a story that is quite jarring on the top of Vanguard, where PDP Makinde says where PDP Makinde and Wike fight dirty. Excuse me. Now it was said, no more vagabonds in PDP. You're a repentant vagabond, and Wike fires back. What do you have to say about this political brouhaha? It seems like there's always something going on lately, especially with Wike. We saw, the Rivers turmoil, really coming out in the headlines in the past few days. And now this. What are your comments on this?
I think in the build-up to 2027 elections, the fever pitch is really rising.
Absolutely.
Very high, and it's getting so volatile. If you ask me, I think that was a moment for Makinde to respond to those pertinent questions about what happened to the 30 billion that Wike accused him of collecting after the 2023 elections, because that was the beginning of the fallout, when he said that he would not support Tinubu's 2027 campaign. So I thought that those kind of events, instead of making broad statements, vague statements about someone being a vagabond, which runs foul of hate speech, I think we should be able to show some level of political sportsmanship and respond to issues rather than getting personal about many of these things, because it will just heat up our polity unnecessarily. And I think that this is the least we need, so that governance would not be relegated to the backstage.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, Benga. In politics, even though the elections are upcoming, we have to know how to speak and conduct ourselves. And yes, that really is a very good point. Thank you for that. Let's move on to our next headline. Dr. Constance, let me pull you in here. This is a headline you yourself chose. So, let's speak on it because it's very interesting. Now, Marwa says 10.6 million Nigerians are hooked on drugs. Can we pull up the Daily Sun, please, for that headline? What do you make of this? 10.6 million is quite a staggering number. And from the statistics I read, I believe that age group is from about the age of 15 going upwards. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, definitely. It is a national crisis that we are facing, as expressed by General Marwa retired. These are Nigerian adults, and this is more than 1 in every 10 people in the prime of their life. That's very significant. We have to note that. And they are being reported to use cannabis in the past year. It makes it by far the most widely used illicit drug in Nigeria today. And so the scale of this far exceeds both national and global averages and point to a public health crisis, as I said earlier. So this requires an urgent, comprehensive response. We have been hearing reports about this quietly for more than 10 years now. There are particular part of the country where this is more of a problem compared to others. At the same time, this is Nigeria, this is a country, and definitely we need to move on this. You want to talk about prevention, you want to talk about treatment, you want to talk about community engagement, and not just law enforcement, because the question would be, what is the agency of Marwa, for instance, doing, and other agencies in Nigeria that are supposed to work on health, on drug issues in regard to youth, or in regard to even other types of adults. We know that beyond Nigeria's adults we also have this kind of things happening in political circles. So in light of what is happening, what is widespread, I think the other issues are that it is a social harm, because it leads to loss of productivity for those that are involved or those that are impacted or affected. It also leads to increased dependency and long-term health consequences. The long-term health consequences is an area that we do not talk much about, but we can see how it affects, and completely disables people that are involved with this kind of in this kind of crisis. Also, he talked about drug cultivation and trafficking networks that are linked to organized crime and insecurity in Nigeria. So this is not just about people that are using it, but people that are also involved in making it available to the users. He talks about tackling this hand in hand, addressing the root causes of the illicit production of the drugs and the distribution. So when he has said all of this, the point then will be, what do we see the agency doing? Apart from publishing this, apart from sharing this information with the public about the crisis that we're facing, what is going to be done about it? And I think that's a question that Nigerians will be asking. You want to see the action after the talk about this.
Right. And very, very pertinent questions indeed. Now let's move on with our last headline of the day, last but not least. And this is the Mandelson controversy with the Jeffrey Epstein case. And there seems to be so much anger going on concerning this, and it's so much global attention is being faced towards it. Now, what I found particularly interesting is that it's not only the tabloids that are carrying this this story, but even the broadsheets are really going into detail with what has been happening with the Epstein files. So far, there has been over 3.5 million files that have been discovered, handed in, and are being read and dissected concerning the actions of Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts. Now, here looking at Mandelson, and looking at what is happening in the UK, we have former Prince Andrew, who is now Andrew Mountbatten, also caught up in the mess. He's being brought up again with brand new charges. And the Daily Mirror says in the front of it that this is inexcusable. Now, this issue fuels global debates about accountability of elite institutions and how, people such as royals should be dealt with. Now, yesterday, Keir Starmer was calling for, Mandelson lordship to be taken away from him. I don't know, I throw it to you all. What do you make of this? Does this really prove that elites are above, the law, in the fact that, they're just having their titles being taken away, but should more happen to them?
I mean, you can see that there were no long speeches here. There were no extensive calls for him to resign. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, just said, look, you've done wrong. You've embarrassed the country. You've embarrassed the Labour Party, so you have to step aside. And himself, he quickly did that. He quickly resigned his membership or his peerage of the House of Lords, which is an organization that is held in high status for people that are elites in the country. So when we look at the law establishing it, because there was a talk on whether he should resign, or whether there was law for him or to compel him to resign. So the House of Lords Reform Act 2014 allows peers to resign voluntarily.
Absolutely.
And then under the House of Lords Expulsion and Suspension Act 2015, the House can vote to expel a member for breaking the code of conduct. Members sentenced to prison for more than a year are also automatically disqualified under the House of Lords Reform Act 2014. And then finally, peers can be removed if they do not attend a whole session, and if you are involved in bankruptcy. So what is happening here is that we have a country where laws are taken seriously, and high office is held in high regard. It means that there are certain behaviors that are expected of you, that are required of you, and once you deviate from that, nobody tells you to step aside immediately.
Just to add to the beautiful comments by Dr. Constance, I think it doesn't show that elitist institutions, especially from the West, are showing exemplary virtues when it comes to accountability and the rule of law. You see what happened. You saw what happened when Trump was made to explain, to respond to the scandals of this Epstein issue, and he said that they should be talking about health care and other, trying to brush away the entire issue. It's very embarrassing. And he also took on the innocent CNN journalist and saying she has never smiled. He's known her for the past 10 years, and that shows that she's not telling the truth. I think that's an inverted approach in handling many of these issues.
I'm glad that you brought up the fact that there are other people involved. Bimba, if I can just come to you very quickly, same story. You know, there's an update that Bill and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify in Congress in the Epstein probe. Can you give us your comments on this very briefly?
I mean, I think they're cornered. I think they wanted to make a political statement, but this is now beyond politics. This has now crossed into the realms of, illegality and, being in contempt. So it's important that they testify and that we hear from them. But I just wanted to sort of go back to Lord Mandelson, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because when you read about him, at some point he was known as the Prince of Darkness. This is not his first scandal. He resigned from Tony Blair's cabinet twice. The first time it was over an undeclared bank loan, and then over intervening in a passport application for an Indian businessman. He's made several off-the-cuff comments, even when he was working under Gordon Brown. So, just speaking to sort of leaning in the direction that Dr. Constance was going on and saying that this is somebody who's been given a lifeline so many times.
And has fumbled
and has been excused for bad behavior. Yes, he continues to bounce back. I wonder whether he'll bounce back from this one. And what's interesting for me is that as much as the tabloids are running more with the Epstein angle, what the House of Lords and government is more worried about is the fact that he actually divulged state secrets. So it just goes to show you that, would this be such a big issue if there weren't the element of, may we call it espionage or leaking state secrets, so to speak, to Epstein? If it was just the photograph of him in that compromising position, how would this have been handled? And it chimes back to Bill and Hillary Clinton in saying, well, the photographs are out, and ultimately nobody has context to those photographs. You can't be prosecuted because of a photograph, in essence. However, they now need to go and clear their names, and this process needs to get to its final conclusion. And as I was advocating for yesterday, we just need to see more intercontinental collaboration with this, because this is a global network, and it must be brought down.
It must be brought down indeed. Well, from PDP to Nyesom Wike and Makinde to drug-related issues to Peter Mandelson, so much to talk about. Those are your headlines for the day. Thank you so much for joining us.